Howdy, howdy, my friend. Welcome back to part two, or phase two, maybe we'll call it, of the spiritual inquiries. Today, we're just going to revisit those foundational spiritual questions. And I want to encourage you to, uh, if there are themes that came through a few weeks ago, um, I would encourage you to kind of revisit some of those just for the sake of tracking what the progress or the evolution has been over the last few weeks. I just think it's an interesting thing to check in with. You don't have to, um, but definitely do a little check in on that. And then, of course, be open to anything that comes in new and fresh, because the reality is every single day is a new day. And when we're working with this part of ourselves and we're working with spiritual guidance and connecting to divine loving consciousness and really connecting to that creative intelligence that is here to support us and guide us on our journey, uh, things are going to shift. And the more we work with that every day, we're actively sort of tweaking, what the future looks like by implementing and integrating those new awarenesses and insights and revelations um, as we move along and as we grow. So, we've really begun this path of beginning to transform our awareness, and with that transformation of awareness comes a transformation of our experiences. Um, and sometimes things can really shift in big and dramatic ways. So just be open to what comes in new and fresh as we embark on those questions, embark on the journey to ask those questions once again. One of the things I wanted to introduce in this second wave of inquiries, I mentioned this in the book, so you might have already read this in the Be Still and Listen book, because we don't spend, this much time on the practical applications of it. It's, kind of a small little chapter, but I really thought it was important in this video course to spend a lot of time learning by doing and practicing and kind of calibrating our intuition for ourselves. So one of the things that I talked about is the posing questions and framing them more as like looking at pathways and potentialities. So I already have shared that I feel the single most important question we maybe could ask is, what do I need to know today for my highest spiritual good? And if we just developed a practice of asking that every single day, life can change and transform. It has for me. That's been my practice. But of course, all these other inquiries have kind of sprung from and around just doing this engaging this process of inner investigation. So I've conveyed that. But another thing that was really helpful for me was when I came about the understanding that at the end of the day, there's not a right or a wrong answer in the way that we traditionally think of it, in terms of like a value judgment. One decision is going to send you to heaven and one decision is going to send you to hell. Like that, in terms of that's not real. That doesn't necessarily happen or exist, depending on how we look at it. If we think of terms of heaven and hell as towards our highest good and maybe dropping deeper into the sort of self-destructive nature of the ego, if we look at it in that way, maybe there's an argument. But without going off on too far of a philosophical tangent, I have come to know, to understand that really our soul is going to learn and grow and evolve no matter what choices we make. Sure, some pathways are going to be slower growth, more challenging growth, maybe even more painful growth, and other paths are going to be a little smoother growth, a little bit more expansive, maybe a little bit more profound, but there's not a right or a wrong growth. There's going to be growth, and depending on which direction the direction it goes depends on the choices we make, essentially. So with that being said, it's been very helpful for myself and for the people that I work with in the intuitive guidance to stop framing things in terms of, should I do this or should I do that, because that infers that there is a right or a wrong answer, or is it right to do this or is it right to do that, because again, that also infers that there's some sort of right or wrong choice. What I've decided to look at is we look at the pathways and the potential lessons and experiences that are awaiting us on that particular pathway. So when it comes to our spiritual growth, maybe we're at a crossroads. Maybe there's something going on, and maybe this has come up from the work we've been doing the last few weeks. And maybe we think there's a decision to be made because, yes, at the end of the day, we do have to make decisions and we have to make choices. We have free will. It's one of the most beautiful gifts we've been given. And that's why there's no right or wrong answer. You can't be told that you've got free will, but then you can be wrong for choosing something. So we know we have free will. We know we're going to learn and grow from any experience, no matter what we choose. I have come to this place where we can look at pathways and the potential pathways and intuitively check in with those and ask, what does my experience look like if I choose this? Path A. What does my experience look like if I choose path B? What does my spiritual growth look like if I choose path A? What does my spiritual growth look like if I choose path B? This is another way for us to sort of investigate different pathways, different potentials, and to intuit for ourselves what potentially lies ahead if we make a particular choice. So for this week, I'll leave you to doing the check-in that we did, the same questions we did last week. If you feel up to it, or if you just want to do an exploration, because I've done this plenty of times, and I still do this. I do this with my tarot cards. I do this with my intuitive senses. I will check in with potential outcomes, even if I know that they don't fit or they don't work for me. I do it just to see what information comes in and to help me calibrate my intuition. Maybe I'm a little nutty. I don't know. I mean, I think we've all can probably agree that I'm a little bit nutty. But I will do this just as an experiment, just as a thought experiment, as an intuitive experiment. So this week, what I want to encourage you to try is to maybe just look at your life and look at where it could go, and just in your own intuitive wisdom seeking session, pick, let's just say 2 paths. You could pick 3 if you wanted, but you can do 2 just to compare and contrast. And it could be something as simple as choosing a job or a relationship or a project that you're working on or anything. And say, what does the path look like? What is my experience if I walk forward into path A? What is the experience that awaits me if I walk forward into path B? And just see what information comes in. And then follow up with, what does the spiritual growth look like if I walk down path A? And what does the spiritual growth look like if I walk down path B? Listen with all your intuitive senses. See what comes in. And journal your answers. Write down your answers and see what comes in. I would be really, really curious to see what comes up for you. So technically, you've got a couple homework assignments this week, if you're up for it. The first one is continue with that same practice that we did in week 1, which was to ask, what do I need to know today for my soul's highest good? Is there anything I need to know today that I'm not seeing clearly? Working through those questions and maybe revisiting some of those themes from that time period. And then also just play around with this and look at your soul's growth and your soul's evolution and the energy and the experience around different potential pathways. And when you're in that meditative state, work with your guidance, work with your higher self, work with loving awareness to just kind of learn how to calibrate your ability to intuit what a pathway holds and what kind of lessons might be there for you. And see what comes up. See what that experience is like. I would love to hear what you experiment and explore. Experiment with and explore. So there you have it. There's your 2 homework assignments for the second phase of the practical application of our spiritual inquiries. I really look forward to seeing what comes up. And once you've done this for the next week or so, check in and click into the next video, and we're going to dive into the second round of our physical body check-in. All right. Happy investigating. Adios.